Hi
Good
everyone,
night.
and welcome to this episode of Peace Talks. This is a series where we catch up with the bands that are coming to play for us at the Marr's Bar in Worcester. And today we've got with us Ray Butcher of Butcher's Brew, who will be coming up on this Thursday, the 25th of July. Goodness me, it's July already. So, hi Ray, thanks for joining us today.
Hi. Thank you.
End of a long day today. This is an evening one that we're doing this evening. So thanks for taking the time out. Yeah, really looking forward to you coming up on Thursday with the band. We'll talk about the band in a bit, but let's start with yourself and learn a little bit more about you. Ray Butcher, the trumpeter, born in Hampshire, I believe, down Portsmouth way, wasn't it?
Yep, that way.
Yeah, cool. And now you're based in Staffordshire. So West Midlands, man. How long have you been up? Because it was Birmingham, I think you moved up first with this way, wasn't it?
Yeah. I got a job with the band King Pleasure and the Biscuit Boys.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah.
And Nigel briefly, and Bill said the job going. I'd just come off the ships, and he said, "Do you want to go for this job?" And I said, "Well, if it's on land, I thought that'd be a good idea to be on land-based work rather than on ships, because I heard stories about people never getting off them.
Right.
It being quite unhealthy. I thought, well, better try and go into a band. Maybe if it doesn't work out, go back on the ships. And I did about a year with that group, and it didn't work out. But I stayed in Birmingham anyway, and the rest is personal history.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll come back to those bands, but yeah. So you started. I believe you started on the cornet at 8. Was it about 8 you were when you started on that? And yet, was that sort of influenced by your brother from playing in brass bands with the Marines?
Yeah, he was in the Marines, and we had brass players in the family, but they're all quite new. Well, I've got 3 brothers who are older and a sister who is older as well. Artistic, she is, but the others, the oldest brother played a bit of tenor horn, and the second oldest brother was the one in the Marines, played cornet to a very high level. He doesn't play. He was very good when he went and joined up the Marines, and then I followed in his footsteps because I just wanted to just like the look of it, and he kind of said it's a good thing to do, and it was kind of I liked the ambience of it, really. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Brass bands was kind of the next thing along the line, you know, from in that. And I'm not from the north. I mean, that's very brass band territory, but
yeah,
down kind of what they all did, and I followed them into a brass band.
So that was the sort of brass bands to start off with. I believe you studied classical music as well. You at one of the colleges. Was it Winchester?
I was at sixth form in Peter Simmons in Winchester. That was so I got I didn't take grade 8, but I got to a level where I felt confident enough to apply for this course that had double music A level, and I thought, well, that's got to go to music college afterwards. And but then it didn't work out there either, because they were messing with technique and stuff, and he was some classical teachers can be very particular about the embouchure, and I just think after one lesson the guy was a bit like, well, we don't think it's going to work. I was playing fine, actually. I think it was just a bit of paranoia on his part, but he was a very good player, very good teacher for everybody other than, I mean, the guy's is in a very good orchestra, but he was very young, and I think perhaps it was a mistake on his part, and he ended up having to take me to a guy at the Royal Academy to fix it. So that was I had lessons with that guy afterwards for a couple of years at the Professor Royal Academy. So that was quite helpful, you know.
Yeah. Because was it around that time because you started playing piano as well, I believe, and started doing gigs more on piano, I suppose. And
yeah, because the embouchure is the lips, and
yeah,
you're not training. You playing the piano. It's easier than playing on a brass instrument. And I wasn't a very high standard on piano. I got to grade 8 just about, but I like playing jazzy music, not jazz improvising, but more sort of written out jazz. I love to be able to improvise. I didn't know much about it, and when people in London improvised, I was amazed by it and always tried to absorb it. But it just, for me, it was a case of enjoying the being in London thing and playing in all the bars there. And I'd walk out and say, "Do you need a pianist?" into a bar, and Stringfellows was one of them, and I got residencies, no problem. They weren't very well paid, but they were just, it was just because I had the gall to ask for a job.
yeah, yeah.
Every job, and that's the first hustling experience I think I had. God knows
Excellent.
why.
Well, there you go. So how did it sort of transition from the sort of brass bands and the classical training through to jazz? Where did that sort of start?
Well, I liked jazz from about the age of 14. My brother being he played big band in the Marines, and I liked some of the way he was playing it. And then he said, "Well, listen to this guy," and I watched the Glenn Miller story, which I thought was amazing because Louis Armstrong was in that, and I was amazed by the drive of some of the musicians. Firstly, I was into pop music, and I was reading a lot about people who had drive to succeed, and Madonna was one of them. I was quite a big fan of Madonna when I was in my 11, 20, sort of the teenage thing. And she was very driven. And then I watched the Glenn Miller story, and I noticed the same traits with Glenn Miller himself. It was, the storyline was, he's got to find the sound, what makes it individual for him. And I thought, well, that's what it is. What's the secret to artistic success? And I was realizing that you need something different, in a very small way. And it's a very long road, isn't it? I mean, you can't contrive these things, but I realized that you needed to be driven. So to answer your question, really, jazz with a way of being an individual and expressing yourself in an individualistic way. And this was, something was very hard for me because you didn't have colleges in the same way that you do now. So it was really a process of absorption for many years after, slowly, very slow, like incremental, tiny, small evolution, compared to some of the youngsters today. We were still hooked on classical techniques and learning to play all the Arban exercises and Haydn and all the rest of it. And Wynton Marsalis was a big influence in that regard because he also played jazz, but I couldn't understand what he was doing with jazz, although I really appreciated the sound he was making. No idea why he was playing the way he was. It didn't sound like Louis Armstrong at the time in the 80s. But then eventually you can see how it all links up. Completely different over this side of the pond,
Yeah. So who might you have been playing with as you were kind of, you said you were sort of absorption from the stuff you were listening to, but I guess you was also out gigging and playing sort of. Who was that you're working with?
I was about 18 when I started playing with Charlotte Glasson, who's quite well known in Brighton. And she was a sax player with a quartet, and a guy called Rob Harris and Adrian Curtis, all sort of London-based musicians. Well, sort of, we're all at the same sort of level. She was more advanced on jazz. Rob was very good on the piano. I don't know where he is now, but he was very good at Bill Evans, and they all kind of eat, slept, and breathed jazz, and I loved all that. Nick plays bass still, lives in Cyprus, and we had these residencies I had, and they would join in and jump on, and we were just having fun, really. And of course, the main influence was professionals around, like Ronnie Scott's. You could go and watch for £10, and we went and saw people like Chico Freeman and Eric Keir and musicians like that, and eventually got to see Wynton when I was about 20 for the first time. So it was just putting records on. It was a really good way. I just thought, God, how do they do it?
Cool. And then just picked it all up and absorbed it into your playing.
Many, really slowly.
Yeah, and you spent a bit of time in Niger as well, previously.
Well, yeah, I say that. I used to go to somebody said, you need to go to the rehearsals because that's the only way you're going to make it as a pro. I thought, I'm going to be a pro trumpet player. I didn't care if it was jazz. And I thought Niger is the place where everybody meets to get work in the functions and the West End. And I thought, well, I've got to go. And so I'd show up and try and sit in the section, and the players that were gigging got the first chair, and You know, eventually, once and after a year of doing this, I started making stuff up to Bill Ashton. I started saying, you know, well, I'm going to be doing this gig or that gig. It was kind of semi-true. We were going to meet some promoters. I used to do a residency, and I'd just finished college at the time, university. This was Kingston. I'd finished that, and I said, look, you know, I'm getting a bit bored of it being put down. You know, weren't getting anywhere, and he tried me out. He put me on first trumpet, and nobody else had turned up because they'd all had gigs on the Friday before, so they were taking a rest. And so if nobody turned up, you got your chance to shine. And
Right.
he
Okay.
actually he quite liked what I did because I got this tune, nice work if you can get it.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I liked at the time I was doing a lot of high work and trying to develop my range, you know, back to what it was before I had all these problems. And I know I'd done loads of practice, 8 hours a day, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
You know, and I got it sufficiently right for him to say, well, here's a gig, you know. And so I did one gig with him, and then I was due to go on the ships. I'd reapplied to be on there because I failed the first time, and I eventually went on the ships like a month or two later, and so I didn't do any further gigs with Bill Ashton, just that one, you know.
Is that like cruise ships?
The cruise ships was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the big, but Nigel, I never played with them once. I'm sure I could have got more with them, but it was like it was a bit of a hothouse, you know, down there.
Mm. So
And
on the cruise ships, was that as part of a jazz trio or quartet or something, or was it just a sort of one of those sort of house bands that you play anything there?
that was it. Yeah, you got to sight read it all, and there was a bit of jazz, and it was on the Holland America line, and they had
Right.
Americans with Brits, and it was quite
Yeah.
interesting. I learned a lot from being on there as a player. You
Yeah,
know,
I've done lots of cruises myself. Me and my wife we do. My wife doesn't like flying. I can't say I like flying either, but it's a great way to travel. So we've done lots of those, and yeah, met some great bands. I've got some friends as well that have been playing in the sort of the you have the party bands, and they do a lot of the other stuff. And then you get some of the ships have the sort of jazz trios and the string quartets and all that in there as well. So. Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. A great. I must get on the Blue Note do a jazz cruise, didn't they as well?
Do you mind being away when you do it? I never really liked it.
Oh no, I'm doing
Uh,
it. I'm talking about as a passenger, as a customer.
I wondered if you were playing. You do play,
No, I don't
don't you?
play. No, no.
I was
But
looking at what does he play the piano? What's because I'm sure you said if you did tell me, then I missed it. But
oh
no,
yeah, because I used to play bass years ago, sort of 30s when I was I picked it up about when I was 16, 17, just after I left school. Played that. I did a bit of trumpet actually for a couple of years because my sister played clarinet. She was playing clarinet at school, I think, at the time, and then
yeah,
I got
trumpet.
I picked up a trumpet from a second-hand shop in Watford.
Where
Got a
are you
note
from?
out of it in the shop, so he says, "Oh, there you go, you can do it."
From Watford, are you that way?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I grew up
Uh,
in Watford, and, we moved up this way 6 years ago. So
yeah. What do you make of the Midlands compared to that area of Watford and London? And yeah, is it a culture shock for you when you came up? Have you been up here many years?
it's a bit up here 6 years. It's a very different way of life. It's which is why we moved away. I kind of I was sort of working mostly in London
Mm.
for a London-based company. So I just wanted to get away and sort of slow down a little bit, slow down the pace. And I just love the countryside around here and the space. We're in a town here, but there's just 15 minutes in any direction, and you're kind of out in farms and stuff like that. So it's lovely for that. But yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I've been getting sort of familiar with the music scene up here and kind of what's going on where.
No, as you're doing well, you've been going everywhere, haven't you?
Yeah,
I
well,
can't.
I try and get out to if I'm not working or doing the other stuff, I'll try and get out to gigs. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on in Birmingham. Cherry Reds and the Spotted Dog Tuesdays and Wednesdays every week now they're doing. So that's great. I mean, it's small bands and stuff, but
Very, very
it's
high.
great because there's so many young people at those as well. That's what I really like. Is there's some of the jazz clubs sort of in the sort of, because I'm part of Jazz Midlands, and some of the clubs around sort of the other West Midlands thing. They've got established audiences that they've had for many years, but you do sometimes feel like you're going into into a
You
remote.
mean with the older audiences, or
Yeah.
yeah, they like Bowl Hall Manor. Have you been there?
No, I haven't actually. No.
I'm just thinking there are a lot of places a bit like that. They're all doing good things, but they sort of have the same. You see the same faces. I used to see them quite a lot when I used to play, and
Mm.
it's good to know how they're getting on because I do think, God, they're still alive. These people, and you don't hear from them ever again. You think they must have, you know. There you go.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
no,
there's there's a couple of the promoters for some of the local clubs that I've spoken to that said, their audience has been around for sort of 12 years and they're sort of aging, and then they sort of just they don't come anymore, and everyone's like, oh well. So your own move up to Birmingham, then that through King Pleasure and the Biscuit Boys, or was that brought you up here in the first place? Yeah.
that was it. The job was there. It was salaried, and it was regular gigs They toured Europe, and there was X amount per month, and they paid the tax, and
Mm.
that was the promise. In 1997, it seemed like quite a lot of money. It wasn't that much, but it was more than I was getting on the ship.
Yeah.
But then the rent to take out and so on, and it was actually quite hard to exist on that amount. But it was. I really felt that I should have done other things around it, but you have to prioritize that band, and you had to
Yeah.
memorize all the music, and you had to be committed to that one group really. So it was tricky on the horn because it was quite a demanding part, and I eventually just lost my stamina really. The lip
Mm.
went, and, it's very demanding. I was basically given the push, which I understand why. There were some days when it went really well and I could play literally any of all the music.
Mhm.
And one thing that taught me about the trumpet is the more you play it up the octave, the more they want it.
Right.
So when you play it high, they'll say, "We'll have that every time." So I was always trying to play it when it didn't even feel right.
Right.
And contrast that to, I saw another band, the James Taylor Quartet, and the guy in
Oh
that
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
amazing. He was amazing, Dominic Glover, but he wasn't always playing the same range. He was playing it down the octave. I saw him at Ronnie Scott's a few weeks later,
Mm.
and he wasn't stressing his lip out. So I think that was my downfall, really, just pushing myself to the limit. And to be honest, to play lead trumpet, you've got to. I mean, I was quite skinny in my 20s, and I didn't really feel that. Yeah, I felt it was overdoing it, so I got swollen lip, and
Mhm.
then the scar as well developed, and I thought, I can't keep doing this for the rest of my life. I had to get into teaching, really. Thought that'd be easier. I didn't know anything about improvisation or how to make a living as a freelancer. I'd never been a freelancer. I'd done 2 years of solid touring, no
Yeah.
teaching, ships or this band. I nearly went onto a circus, but I thought that would be harder. But I heard the circus, and my friend said, "I'll give it to you if you want it." And it wasn't actually that hard. But the fact that it was just more playing, it was just depressing.
Right.
And we're not talking about the kind of playing you want to do. It's just playing the
Yeah.
parts that are, and you've got to just play the parts as they are. So
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to do.
Cool.
And
So
no
was
steps
it?
allowed.
Yeah. It's because I'd not actually heard of for some reason King Pleasure and the Biscuit Boys had escaped my notice and my radar until I read last year or earlier this year Jim Simpson's book Don't Worry About the Bear. So that was an interesting
I'm not.
interesting introduction to the character of Jim Simpson as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment. Right.
Moving swiftly on. But
Yeah.
yeah, you've also been working with Tim Oman in his Extet along with Sam Rogers. So
Yeah.
Sam and Tim are obviously in the band that are coming up in on Thursday at Butcher's Brew. Sam Rogers, he's played a couple of times because he came up with Rebase is with his band twice actually. He did a support slot in July last year with a band Laura 3. It's a power trio, they're sort of jazz rock stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic guitarists. They've just released their new album actually, their first album. I'm not sure if I got the Bandcamp release through today, and they're doing a launch I think in August. But if you ever get the opportunity to check out Roy Marchbank, guitarist,
Lloyd, what are they called?
Roy Marchbank, Law of Three is a band, but Roy Marchbank, the guitarist, he does. I mean, it's insanely fast the way that he plays, but he also uses I can't remember the name of the technology he uses, but he uses like a breath controller and a load of synthesis sound. So he'll do. He actually did like he was dueling with Sam Rogers on the sax, doing a sort of sax solo on his guitar with, and he does all sorts of strings and orchestrated stuff and that. And the whole album they produced is all the other sounds other than the bass and drums is him on the guitar. But yeah, if you look at my YouTube channel, there's a bit of the recording from that gig, but they've got loads of other stuff on there. It's just insanely incredible to watch. As a guitarist, he developed a technique from, it's a sort of hybrid technique from Sawad playing the Indian sort of sitar type. Yeah, so that was so Reed actually had worked with, because that's Andy Edwards, the drummer in Law of Three. And I think they'd worked together. Sam had worked with them before, so Sam jumped in for a bit with Laura 3 as well.
You mentioned Andy Edwards. Somebody else mentioned that name and today. Actually, I can't remember. I don't think I've met him. No, I know. Obviously, I know Sam and Reed very well.
Yeah,
but not seen Reed for absolutely ages. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
See if Reed will come down. I know he's been working with the Windrush thing show recently.
Yeah.
Not sure if he'll be around, but yeah, we'll see if we can get him down.
Yeah, I need to do that. I couldn't do it years ago, but he's worked on a few shows. Reed has, and he's a very talented bass player. I said, but he used to bring the house down at the Drum in Birmingham, and he was brilliant at doing extravagant solos and everything.
Yeah,
but great. He had a really kicking band with him the whole time. Top rhythm section players.
Yeah, that's grand. So great. Yeah, so Tim Timmerman, fantastic piano player. Seen him in a few different lineups.
Probably guy too. Yeah.
So, and who else have we got in the band?
Mike Green.
Right, Mike Green. That's on bass.
Drums. Sam, myself. That's it. Tim. Yeah, just quintet.
Miles Levin, you say on drums, wasn't it?
Yeah. Miles, son of Tony Levin, not the bass player. Tony Levin,
indeed.
The drummer, not the bass player.
Right.
Everyone knows the bass player, and jazzers tend to know the drummer as well, because the drummer was Miles' dad. Tony is a really big name in the Birmingham Conservatoire, because he taught. Well, first of all, he played for people like Ronnie Scott, Tubby Hayes, and Evan Parker, and all these free jazz. He was a musician. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Musician.
A musician.
Free jazz, experimental, improvised, just pure improvised music, and very energetic swing. Paul Dunmore sax, Paul Rogers on bass, and Keith Tippett on the piano. Often you join them.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Really energetic, big in particularly the 90s, I think, possibly earlier. But Paul Dunmore's from Worcester, isn't he? Have you ever heard of him? Incredible sax player, free jazz, and
don't think I've come across him.
Really ought to check. He's in the mold of it, free jazz of Evan Parker and John O'Gallagher. Similar. Well, it's all a bit subtle, and I can't really put my finger on each style, but you've got a Coltrane influence there heavily in his playing. Rear side up. Yeah.
Oh, so that's the band. What kind of music can we look forward to on Thursday?
A mixture of my originals with Tim and a few standards. Tim's got some originals, I've got some, and pretty much blue note ballads. And I wrote sort of Sambury type stuff, and a bit of swing. But there are more swing numbers that I've written that we don't actually play. But Tim's writes kind of sort of more hybrid between folk and rock, a little bit like some of the Brecker Brothers type fusion.
Right. Yep.
Well, with the quintet, especially with Sam playing it.
Yeah.
And I prefer to play a whole mix. I prefer, obviously, straight ahead. But we tend to only minimize the number of straight ahead numbers we do. Blue Note is one of the styles I've written for, but I really like swing.
Yeah.
But we will probably play tunes like Four or Night in Tunisia. Standards and a few of Tim's and my tunes, really. But that's what we did at the Jam House the other day, pretty much, I think.
Yeah, cool.
It's more energetic than just swing, I think, straight
Yeah,
ahead.
good stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you to the Mars Bar stage. First time
Thank
at
you.
the Mars Bar?
It is, I believe. I don't think I've ever been to that bar before. No.
There you go.
Well done for putting it on, and long may that continue. Hope you. Is that the only place you promote, or are you looking to do
Yeah,
more?
yeah, just focusing on the Mars Bar. Yeah, I kind of went into it very fluidly a couple of years ago with kind of a vague idea of kind of the direction that I want to go in, but with no real experience of doing it. I just sort of jump in and flail around and see what works and sort
Well,
of
you're doing
adjust
the
time. But
yeah.
yeah, I think focusing on one venue and one night rather than sort of trying to spread it too thin. And actually, I've increased because the first 18 months, I suppose, I was doing monthly, and that got me into the rhythm of understanding, what needs to be done for each gig and kind of the timings for getting stuff promoted and and then booking out the next slot. So I've got into a bit of a rhythm for that. So then
Yeah.
in January we went to every 2 weeks, which suddenly seemed like a colossally more amount of work for the first few months.
You're doing a lot of putting this on as well. I mean, this promotion lark is not easy, is it? I
No,
did a
you've
bit
done a bit yourself, haven't you? With the you were
I
doing the Yardbird in Birmingham.
dabbled, yeah, and it's very hard to get the numbers in, and everyone blames you, but it's hard. It's just people don't always go out, do they, and spend money.
No, it's tricky, and I've come at it with the idea of what I want to focus on original music as much as possible, getting people that don't normally listen to jazz or jazz related music. I tend not to overly promote it as jazz. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing is fusion, sort of soul influence stuff as well. So
Sure,
it's
yeah.
it's really just sort of come along and listen to some great musicians and make your own judgment on it. And yeah, a lot of people aren't buying tickets in advance. They make a decision on the night. So I just sort of switch to, well, pay what you can on the door, turn up and come down.
Yeah,
And it's like I say, yeah, the
it will.
attendance, although still modest, it's going up. It's increasing. And I think going to
You're doing
every 2 weeks has helped that because it's just in people's minds more. And I think even the weekly ones, a lot of people won't go every week, but if you know it's on every week, you're more likely to sort of just turn up when you
it,
are
yeah.
available.
There's very
So,
very few venues do it every night nowadays, and they get the lion's share of the attendance, but they don't necessarily get it on all the nights of the week.
yeah. I think doing every night is really difficult. I mean, yeah, I suppose you've got Peggy Skylight. I think they do pretty much every night, don't they?
Yeah,
Obviously,
plays.
the ones in London, 606 and Ronnie's and that. But
Yeah.
yeah, outside, I mean, yeah, I don't know if you've ever played down at Tristan Banks's Verdict
No, no,
up
I
in
know people.
Brighton, but they've done yeah. I mean, last year I think he was doing 3 or 4 nights because he's doing like a couple of workshops
Mm.
earlier in the week, and then he'd do Fridays and Saturdays, and then Sunday he'd do his jazz barbecue in the summer as well. So, but yeah, I think at the moment every 2 weeks is kind of is working for the moment. But,
I don't know if Birmingham's ready for it, really.
yeah,
Maybe I think Birmingham would like. Birmingham needs a jazz club. I always thought it had Ronnie Scott's, but that went belly up. And Manchester's got Matt and Fred's,
yeah,
and it's quite a decent. Well, it's not it's not bad, and it's a jazz club with a piano in and sound
mm,
system. So it's one ahead of Birmingham. I know this Conservatoire's got a club, but it's not quite. Doesn't feel
yeah.
like a. It's a college, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of inside the inside the campus.
It's not really the same as having a designated, businessman needs to come. And I did think when I lived in Birmingham, that's what I'd try and bid for some money for. But then you stop playing and you start worrying about club
Yeah,
ownership. And I know Steve Ruby has a hard time sometimes, I think. And and then Paul Zeitz as well
yeah,
in Nottingham.
yeah,
Living kind of on the edge, or you get the impression they are. I'm not sure if they are, but I wouldn't want to be in that position.
yeah,
It's going to cause a lot of stress, but I'm sure they're fine. It's just so stressful with jazz and the public because not educated about
yeah,
jazz.
yeah. Cool.
And
Well,
America, playing in America about the audiences, don't they? But in New York, but anyway, another story.
We'll build it up. We'll build it up. Build it and they'll come, as they say. So yeah, well,
No,
like I say,
what's
thanks for your time this evening. It's been great chatting with you and getting to know a little bit more about you. And safe trip
all
out on
right.
on Thursday, and we'll see you down at the Marr on Thursday. Thanks very
Can't
much.
wait.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Okay.